I never thought betrayal could sound like a gavel hitting would. But when the judge said, "This court will now hear case number 5473, Anderson versus Anderson," I finally understood. My parents weren't trembling out of shame. They were trembling out of excitement. They were suing me, their own son, to kick me out of the house I bought. The one I'd rebuilt with my own hands after my divorce, the home they now claimed, was meant for my sister's fresh start. Across the courtroom, my mother refused to meet my eyes. My father's tie was knotted to perfection. My sister Lily looked every bit the innocent victim, tears perfectly timed, voice rehearsed. But the truth was simpler. They had decided I didn't deserve to keep something they could use. That was their first mistake. It started 3 years ago, right after my divorce. I'd moved back to my old neighborhood, bought a rundown Craftsman, and poured my heart into restoring it. My parents called it practical, Lily called it cute, I called it home. They dropped by often, pretending to help, borrowing tools, offering advice, and not so subtly mentioning how Lily wanted a house nearby once she married her fiancé, Ryan. I didn't think much of it until Mom offhandedly said one day, "It would be poetic if this house stayed in the family for Lily." I laughed. She didn't. That's when I started noticing things. Papers my dad forgot on the counter while helping with, taxes, questions about my mortgage, random calls from an appraiser saying they were updating local records. By the time I realized they quietly filed to challenge the deed, it was too late. My father's lawyer claimed the down payment came from a family trust they managed. Their argument: the money was technically theirs, so the house should belong to my sister. I didn't confront them. I didn't scream. I just watched. I let their fake kindness play out. The Sunday visits, the friendly check-ins, the smiles that didn't reach their eyes. I answered politely, even when I knew they were just digging for information. I didn't fight back. I prepared. I started recording every conversation, every slip of the tongue, every quiet admission that the so-called trust didn't even exist when I bought the house. But I needed something stronger, something they couldn't twist or deny. It came from someone they never expected, my daughter, Emma. She was 7, soft-spoken, but sharp. One night, she sat at the dining table tapping on her tablet and said quietly, "Grandma said you'll have to move soon." I froze. She said that. Emma nodded. She said, "This is Aunt Lily's real house now." I recorded it. Want to hear? My heart sank when she pressed play and I heard my mother's voice, calm, manipulative, dripping with poison, telling my little girl lies. I knew that was the beginning of their end. That night, the revenge started to take shape. Court day arrived before I knew it. My parents' lawyer painted a tragic story about generosity gone wrong. "Mr. Anderson," he said, "used his parents' trust fund to buy this house. It was always meant for his sister. We simply asked that it be returned to its rightful owner." I sat still, calm, letting him finish. My lawyer stayed quiet. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, glanced between us. "And what proof do you have of this trust fund?" she asked. My father smiled confidently and slid a folder across the table. She skimmed through it, her expression unmoved. "These are unsigned drafts," she said flatly. My father shifted in his chair. "Well, the agreements were verbal," he muttered. "Verbal," she repeated, unimpressed. He nodded, sweat starting to form on his forehead. Then it was my turn. I stood and straightened my tie. "Your Honor, before I present my defense, my daughter would like to show you something. She's 7, but I think it's important." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Proceed." Emma stepped forward, clutching her small tablet. She looked nervous, but her hands didn't shake. "Can I show you something my grandma said?" she asked softly. The judge gave a faint smile. "Go ahead." Emma pressed play. My mother's voice echoed through the courtroom. "Don't worry, Lily," she said. "Once your brother's gone, we'll tell him it's for his own good. He never appreciated what we did for him anyway." A pause. Then my father's voice, "He'll fold. He always does." Laughter followed, my sister smug and certain. "Good. I want the house before the wedding." "If photographs better." The room went dead silent. I looked at them. 3 people I once trusted, frozen in disbelief. The judge leaned forward. "This was recorded in your home, Mr. Anderson?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "My daughter recorded it without me knowing. I've already submitted the original field's metadata and timestamp to the court." She nodded slowly. "Then I've heard enough." The gavel came down hard. "Case dismissed. The property remains under Mr. Anderson's ownership, and I'm forwarding this for potential fraud investigation." My parents didn't move. Lily started crying, but it wasn't guilt, it was shock. I turned to Emma, knelt down, and whispered, "You did perfect." When I stood up, my father finally spoke. "You think you've won?" He growled. I met his eyes and said, "No. I proved you lost." They walked out without a word. I didn't follow. That night, the house was quiet, almost too quiet. but for the first time, it felt like it truly belonged to me. Every wall, every nail, every beam I'd rebuilt stood as proof of something they could never take. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, through a child's voice in a courtroom, through truth that cuts deeper than vengeance. And sometimes, that whisper is loud enough to shatter an entire family's illusion of control. I looked around my living room, the one they used to call temporary, and smiled. They wanted a house. I built a fortress.